I am sick and tired of these generic lame channels just spouting false information, but everyone watches them because they're like, ooh, editing, oh, that must be true, oh. So today, you're instead going to listen to this professional idiot talk about why the OBF video about grid cities is absolutely wrong. So here we go. I actually have a problem with a few OBF videos, but there's one in particular that we're going to be focusing on today, and that's the one about grid cities. But maybe I'll touch on those other videos a bit later. Anyway, let's get on to what Oliver here says about grid cities.
Cities with a high quality of life don't have a rigid grid design. Now, you might say, these livability indices are a function of many parameters, and the statement I just made is based on a simple correlation. Saying that a grid design makes the city less livable is the same as saying that a pirate shortage caused global warming.
I'll just start off by saying it's usually not good to contradict yourself and make yourself seem not sure of yourself in the beginning of a video where you're arguing for something. But anyway, let's get on to his point.
Are cities with an urban grid actually worse? Well, I'd say so. Right, so why do grid designs become problematic? Well, cars. You see, most of the urban grids were laid out before the advent of the automobile, and then this guy, Henry Ford, figured out how to mass produce affordable cars and everything turned upside down. When Model Ts started crowding the streets in the 20s, the very elements that had been the grid's strengths, its uniformity and its simplicity, suddenly became its biggest flaws. When all the streets in a city are basically the same, this means that every street is as accommodating to cars as the next one.
Now, what he said I'm very conflicted about, because on the one hand, yes, automobiles are part of the reason why cities are terrible, or can be terrible. There's a great Not Just Bikes video on that about sound, and I personally have one about street width on my channel about Philadelphia. And that's one of the issues I have with this statement that he has here, is that the streets were built to accommodate cars, or were wide enough, and that's simply not true. But before I get into any of my rants too soon, let's continue and see what he has more to say.
The inability to distinguish between streets able to accommodate high speeds and residential streets led to a huge increase in traffic accidents. To make matters worse, a structural property of the grid is the high frequency of intersections, which also happen to be the most accident-prone points on a street. Very soon, the urban planners became aware of the problem and started promoting more car-friendly urban designs.
So again, he's right and wrong with this, but this is the first point that I really have an issue with. So having small block sizes and really frequent intersections is actually a really good thing. So this is good because it actually slows down cars because you have to pay attention to the next intersection, which is coming up very soon. It's also good because it allows for people to walk from block to block very easily and not feel like it's a very strenuous task to walk an entire block. A good example of this is my home city of Philadelphia, where the blocks are about 130 meters long. This allows for easy walkability and for cars to have to slow down on these narrow streets. A bad example of this is Salt Lake City, where the blocks are about 240 meters long. Not only does this kill the walkability of the city, but it also makes the streets very wide and makes it easy for motorists to speed down the streets. Again, compare this to Philadelphia. The streets are wildly different, and it's not because it's a grid. These are both grid cities. But you can see that one is substantially nicer because the streets are a lot narrower and people-friendly. And I think this is the issue with a lot of this video and a lot of the statistics that he talks about, is that a lot of the American cities that are giving these statistics look like Salt Lake City, where they're very car-heavy and car-dependent, and the streets are very wide and the blocks are very long. Of course they're going to produce terrible statistics, and of course they're going to be terrible for walking. Like, it's not rocket science. You can tell by just looking at the thing like, hey, I don't want to exist there. But anyway, next we're going to talk about a quote that he uses in the video.
Tough but elegant manner. Quote, the new gridiron plans were spectacular in their inefficiency and waste, by usually failing to discriminate sufficiently between main arteries and residential streets. The first were not made wide enough, while the second were usually too wide for purely neighborhood functions.
Alright, if you're coming from like a surface level understanding of like urban planning, yeah, I can see how you could blame like grids, but if you know anything about American planning, most of the issues that are generated from making roads too wide comes from very very old DOT standards that were written in like the 50s and 60s. Basically, back in the 50s and 60s, when the interstates and when most of the new highway systems were being built, road engineers figured out that if you made the roads wider and you also put safety margins on the side of the road, you could generally make them safer for drivers and reduce crashes. The issue with this is that they applied this to not only highways, but every single type of road, including residential roads. And that's why even nowadays you still get ridiculously wide suburban roads. It's just because the DOT standards have just never been changed. So when someone says that, oh, they did it to all the standards of the state, or they did it to the book standards, well, sometimes the book can just still suck ass. Anyway, from that point, let's move on to something that's actually very easy to debunk.
To begin with, its rigidity means that it's very inflexible to the topographic idiosyncrasies of the terrain, leading to a disruption of the natural land features. Or, in less pretentious language, to build an urban grid, you basically have to flatten everything that stands in its way.
Wow, I sure do love the grid city of San Francisco. They really had to flatten out all the land there. I cannot believe that there is a grid on such a flat terrain. Can you ever imagine such a thing? Ever building a city on hills that's a grid? No, I could never imagine that. Alright, just to make this a double dunk, here is some Seattle footage too. Both places are very hilly and they are very much grids. Maybe you're lazy in city skylines or something and don't want to build a grid on like a hill. But yeah, you can clearly do that.
Another problem is that grids usually come with a higher ratio of paved surfaces, meaning more cement and asphalt and therefore less permeability and water retention capacity, which is a recipe for potential rainwater management problems. An additional culprit regarding the connection of the grid design with environmental hazards has been suggested in a recent paper by a group of researchers who found that cities with a grid design tend to retain more heat than nonlinear ones.
Again, this has nothing to do with grids. This has all to do with the amount of asphalt and the amount of car infrastructure you have for a city. This is obviously going to hold a lot more heat than this or this or this. Tram greenways and things that do not have to do with cars, you can put trees over them, you can put covering over them. They are not going to hold as much heat as just a parking lot of asphalt. Get rid of your car infrastructure. That's what's causing the heat in your city. That's what's causing the heat to be held in your city. Replace it with grass, replace it with trees, replace it with pedestrian infrastructure, anything else. This has nothing to do with grids.
They suggest that this effect arises from the fact that the perpendicular streets of the grid disrupt the airflow and consequently trap heat. This effect alone, the team found, causes an estimated $400 million in excess costs for air conditioning in the state of Florida.
It says Florida! Some of the worst urban planning and infrastructure known to man are found in the goddamn Sunshine State. So if you are gonna argue that grid cities are bad based off of Florida, I'm just writing off your argument completely. No. I really wonder where he gets a lot of the information for this. It seems eerily familiar to some of the other videos that I've seen on these topics, but there's nothing in the description I can find. Also, one of those videos that I talked about earlier in this video is called Why America is Terribly Designed, and it's kind of weird because the first half of this video is very, very similar to a Not Just Bikes video, specifically the one on Houston. I like Jason and Not Just Bikes a lot. His channel's very good, but the thing about his channel is it's very personable. So that means if for some reason you really liked his content a lot, and you really liked his style or what he was talking about, and maybe you wanted to present it on your own, in your own video, it would be very hard to just outright copy it because it's a personal experience. So if you were to copy that video theoretically, what you would do is you would write down what most of Jason says and then redo it in your own voice in a different type of video with a lot of stock footage. Not that anyone would ever do that, but that's generally how you try to do it. But say theoretically you make this copycat video where you don't add anything new, you just copy what the Not Just Bikes video was, but the video didn't turn out as long as you thought it was, and you needed to add a little bit more, but you didn't really know what to add. What would you do then? So you come up with the solution. You look up another video that's similar to what you're talking about, and you're like, I'll just copy that one too. That would never happen, right? Never. No, that would never happen.
remarkable.
This is a
This
map
of
of Chicago's train system.
If you look at
If
its
you look at its
design, it's
design,
not very hard to figure out what it was built to do. All its different lines intersect here in Chicago's downtown, and then fan outward. This is a system that's really good at moving people between the suburbs or the outer rings of the city and then downtown.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is how OBF has built his channel so quickly. About 60% of his videos, or 50 to 60% of his videos, are copies from somewhere else, or directly related from something. But even if he did get caught, which he did before, he has released a statement in his community tab, but I can't seem to find it, apparently. Oh wait, I can, someone saved it for me. And what I don't like about this is that when you actually genuinely have a mistake, you take down your video, you fix it, and you re-upload it. That's exactly what Real Life Lore did when I called him out for the California high-speed rail stuff. But it's pretty clear here that OBF makes it obvious that it's all about the money, because he offers to pay Jason off, basically. And my issue with your channel is that you cover a lot of similar topics to me, but you just copy a better video, and then you lose a lot of the details in the translation when you're copying it. Now, what I don't understand is you obviously have really good editing skills, so I don't get why you just keep copying other people's videos. Clearly just make your own thing. And for the most part, there are certain videos that I think are unique and you have made without copying anything. But you also have copied a lot, 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 a lot. I don't know what to say, man. I'm just disappointed in you. You're at the point where you could make whatever you want, and you still continue to make stuff. This Japan video came out a few days ago. Like, come on. Hey, Oliver, a little heart-to-heart here. So, I'm kind of disappointed in you, because you have the power and editing skills to actually do really good things in this world. The problem is that you keep copying stuff. Now, is that for money? Well, if you're honest, then yeah, you could just say that. But it looks like you're trying, so I don't know. But either way, I really, really want you to try to do your own stuff, because some other creators like me are affected by the stuff you create, because I have to deal with the bullshit like these Grid City videos that you put out. Do I expect everything that you create to be totally original and new? No, there's going to always be some overlap with some video out there in the internet, but it's pretty obvious when you copy something from somewhere else. So to finish this out, are Grid Cities bad? No, they aren't. They're fine. Barcelona is one of the best examples, and if you want to see a video about it, Vox has a good one here. Or if you want to see a copied version of this video, you can go watch it by this smug guy that puts a minute ad in it. Anyway, thank you all for going through that intrepid journey with me. I hope we can make the internet a better place with less copycats, but you never know. I would like to thank my Patreons, especially the ones on Discord that helped me put together a spreadsheet of all the videos that overlapped and were copies from OBF. You guys did a lot of work, so very much thank you. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.